Omni's got most of it. He's got both mics there.
So it's all his fault.
Yeah.
You guys happen to hear banjo tonight. He wants me to stand in front of the mic.
That's it.
It's all his fault.
And Ron, the only time we need these other two mics, if you can't tell is when Wally's going to talk, or if Jerry's going to sing.
Yep.
Okay.
That one will be
Other
down.
ones you can cut down because we're getting no
Yep.
windsocks.
Well, you got two mics together there. That's why it's picking up so much.
No windsocks.
Yeah. No socks.
So you cut them down until
Too much or too little?
Don't be afraid of it, Wally.
So if we're too loud, tell us please. The number 1 and number 2 song request received. Number 1 is Get Out. Number 2 is Stay Out. Those are the 2 songs that people like to request from us most. Other than that, if it's too loud, tell us. We don't usually play with sound. We usually play acoustically all over the place. So just let us know if it's too loud, we can turn it down. And thank you to Ron from Polson for giving us the time tonight to do this, because he and I play in Polson some too. But it's his sound system, his sound, and he gave us the time.
We'll do the best.
So thank you much, we appreciate it.
He did all the work.
Well, I wasn't going to say we didn't show up until 10 minutes ago. So tonight is a special night in the sense it's Big Arm, and it's always happy to play this one. This is the Bannack String Band. For what that's worth in English, you usually can't hire us to play. We play benefits, usually for things of merit. Old places like Bannack State, the territorial celebration for the territory of Montana, the 100th anniversary of the National Park Service, and the Bannack Association's on the list. So we spend a week every summer across the lake. We play the church services in the morning in Dayton and Polson. But the point is, everybody here likes music. None of us will tell you how old we are. All I'll tell you is we're old enough to know better. And that's a good answer, I reckon. So what we also picked tonight is just a simple theme for music. This is easy. And I'm glad to see Mr. Kidwell here tonight, who is a fine player himself, too. And we would have made him play, but didn't have time to practice anything. Otherwise, I would have drugged him up here and said, do it, Ken. Sorry, but you lucked out. Last time we did this, it was about 57 degrees. It was the same time of the year. All of you had sweatshirts, sleeping bags, and blankets. So I'm glad it's not that time this year.
Now we have smoke.
Now we have smoke. And we were originally going to learn smoke gets in your eyes. And then I got a call back in the courthouse on Friday that said, we're sorry, but there's no encores. Because they shut off the water in Polson, so you can't do smoke on the water for an encore. So we decided enough of that. Anyway, so some simple things. Tonight's music, all things from your past. Simple question, who we be? Who are we, what we have? And if you've never had a chance, take a look at a fine book written in 1969 by a Canadian geographer called The 9 Nations of North America. And what he wrote was really simple. It doesn't matter what you speak, where you're from. There's not 19 countries in North America. There's actually 9 based on culture, custom, culture, history, heritage. You went to the same schools, except for Quebec, mostly speak the same languages, and Mexico, etc. With all the songs you'll hear tonight, I think some of you haven't heard since the 1st grade or the 5th grade. They're about us, how we work, what we do, where we came from, how we got here, what people do for a living, and what stresses us out. Some's about our country, history, what the anthems were, where they go, so just enjoy yourselves. So that's the point. We'll probably play about 50 minutes or an hour and take a 10-minute break, and then we'll play for an hour to end that. So I think where we agreed to start earlier today was a question of those of us who spoke European better than we spoke native languages here all came a simple way, on a boat. And when you came on the boat, it was kind of a bummer because we didn't have Wi-Fi, we didn't have 5G, we didn't have cell phones that worked at sea, so we had to entertain ourselves. And there was 2 ways to do that. One was this: you brought an instrument. If you were Italian, you called it an ocarina. And what we call that in Missouri in the South is a sweet potato pipe. If you're Irish, you call it an Irishman's pipe, whatever else. And other people called it a simple thing that every boat had on it. Not a mouth harp, which is a harmonica, but a sailor's hornpipe. And this is what it sounded like. So from the question of how people got here, what came out of the equation a lot of interesting things. The Magna Carta was English. No one had ever talked about a constitution for a nation before. No one had done things of that type either, but from that a lot came. And there were some rocks in the road. And we're sorry for the wind, but it's kind of nice. At least we're cool and not hot today. So from that, a medley of different perspectives on songs came, different things for people's country and what they were. Before we play them, I'll tell you a simple thing. At Bannack this year, one of the more interesting conversations is 150 some years ago, the nation was two colors. We were blue and we were gray. That's why the original name of Virginia City, Montana was Verona, Jefferson Davis's wife's name. That's why Confederate Gulch is still a draw down by Virginia City. And it's a funny thing that 160 years later, if you look at an election return on television at night, what you'll see is it's a nation of two colors, blue and red. It's a funny thing that in 240 years, things really haven't changed that much. And this is a medley of songs for who we are in terms of a country. So if I had it to do again, I'd play an instrument that wasn't taller than the roof. And for what it's worth, is it on still? For what it's worth, it's a lot older than Big Arm. It's a lot older than all of us. This bass was built in Prussia in 1880. Played 70 years for the Denver Symphony. Guy who played it for almost all that time was 5'3", and it's almost a full-size bass, and how he did it is beyond me. But it doesn't have a pickup and it doesn't have a mic, and you'll notice you can hear it. It is a piece of work. And it's kind of like my pickups, Tom, that you sell me parts for. It's very old but well seasoned. So besides the question of how our country is and where we came from, there's also the jobs that we do. And the Irish didn't like a whole lot of things one way or the other way, naturally, but since the Irish didn't, they always had to have a job, especially the women. And what described their occupation in a lot of places early on was what they had, which is a washboard, and they were the Irish washerwoman.
Out there taking. No Irishman in the crowd.
Well, for a Scots boy, the no Irishman in the crowd is kind of an okay thing most of the time. That is a separate story, but we did a lot of other things still. Some of our jobs, everybody talks about, ask John Wayne what it was like to be a cowboy. I think if every kid who doesn't know who he is didn't go to the movies much when we did as children, but a lot of people still do. So some of those things are really simple. Some of them came in the 30s and 40s. Persons like Gene Autry did songs of that type, and they were simple and they were nice. And Jerry knows a lot of them well. And to this day, there's 5 or 6 of us here who still run cows for all or part of a living. And some of us run chickens and ducks and other things. And sheep, and we won't hold it against Denise. Everybody's got a past. She could have been a mass murderer, instead she has sheep, you know. But anyway, agriculture is part of the key to what that was. But basically, Gene Autry was the person who on television with a guitar and in the movies made it something every cowboy wanted to do. The trivia question for the first one tonight is, who was Sandy the Singing Cowboy? Who played that part? It was his 4th movie. Who? That's right, John Wayne. Hardly anybody knows that. Well done. So Jerry, go ahead.
What do you want to do, Wally?
Gene Autry's best song. The problem with being ambidextrous is when you play more than one instrument, you have to change around some. But Jerry does, that's okay. Most everyone up here plays a couple of things. It's because we're desperate for help, actually. But the real truth, it depends on what the song is that you're playing. But you'd rather do something else too. But I will take the moment and say there's actually 3 different bands in 3 different states in front of you tonight. Denise Durocher is from Idaho, lives north of Salmon, Idaho. Donald Gauld's from Washington. He's a Missoula kid who lived on the lake for all of his life over here. Half the other people here are from Idaho as well. Okay, Jerry Eastman's from Idaho. Richard Baharny on banjo is from Idaho. Dean Shiner's on the other end. He's also from Idaho, which is nice. The Bacons grew up in Columbia Falls. By the way, these 2 were roommates. That's John Bacon and Joni Bacon. They were roommates because they were twins. And then Forrest Leal is from Lima, which is 16 miles north of Idaho, so he's almost in Idaho. And I'm Wally Congdon, and I'm from Missoula. But I live here all summer too for a lot of years and live in Polson a lot of the time as well, which is all right.
This will take you back a few years, folks. You see, evening chores are over at the ranch house on the plains. All I have to do is lie around. I saddle up my pony and I'll ride off down the trail just to watch that desert sun going down. Riding down the canyon just to watch that sun go down. That's a picture that no artist ever could paint. White-faced cattle lowing on the mountainside. I could hear a coyote whining for his mate. Well, the cactus plants are blooming, sagebrush everywhere. Granite spires are standing all around. I tell you folks, it's heaven to be riding down the trail just to watch that desert sun going down. I'll play it, Johnny. Plants are blooming, sagebrush everywhere. Granite spires are standing all around. Well, I tell you folks, it's heaven to be riding down the trail just to watch that desert sun going down. Just to watch that desert sun going down. Yes, thank you all.
Want to do your other cowboy song now? Cowboys look better. You got to switch it on. So.
I'd have to switch right quick. Tell them something about it.
You know, the truth is, aside from the fact that I ranch for a living and I teach as well for colleges for a long time, the truth is I'm a lawyer as well, which means they get paid by the note and I get paid by the word. And I like that a lot more, some of the time. So some of the songs you hear got popular as well in the 80s and 90s again. Some of them were the story themselves of who they are, or who we are. This is a song that came out of Wyoming in the 1970s. And a lot of people don't understand who it is and what you do. Some of those songs were about loggers, some were about people who were train engineers, and some of those songs were about cowboys. And one of the more simple of all is Simple Message, which says, this is what we do, and a lot of people do not understand, because they've never looked at a hawk on the wing, they've never spun a rope, they've never broke a horse, they've never whatever else. It's a different world. And it is, and that's fine. However, A Cowboy's Lament is a song that was very popular, and I assumed probably a third of you had never heard it. So we thought in terms of defining who we be, this is a good song to do precisely that.
friend back home. He said last night I ran into Jenny. She'd married and now it's good life. Sure makes the crack when you never came back. She's a perfect professional wife. She said, why do you ride for your money? Tell me, why do you roll your pain? You're getting nowhere and you're losing your shirt. Oh, you must have gone crazy out there. Well, I read up the rest of my letter, tore off a stamp of black gin. When Billy rode up to relieve me, he looked at the letter and he grinned. He said, why do you ride for money? Tell me, why do you roll so oh, thank you, that's not true. Well, that's a lot of help.
So aside from where we are and what we do, the other basic things that came with it, one of them was faith. A simple thing, a lot of people do not realize it. There was a very significant Catholic church in Dayton, Montana until 1943 when it was dismantled for purposes of building PT boats in Seattle, Washington for the war effort. It was loaded up, stuffed on a boat, and shipped to Seattle. However, if you look in Montana, Idaho, Washington, and Oregon, you will find there is only one cemetery in 4 states where all the graves are dug by hand. And that is the tribal cemetery in Dayton, Montana, which started as a Catholic cemetery in 1862. And Mr. Kinmill, who was born in Elmo, could probably tell you more about that if you ever want to know, but it's a phenomenal piece of history to me that tradition and that faith has stayed intact all of these years. And it's a simple other part of the equation. Early on, John Calvin figured out what politically correctness meant and what that was. There was an early translation years ago. Nobody understood what Martin Luther did until he realized the Pope did not like him, so Luther ran. Which is why you became a Lutheran. Which is also why simple persons like myself were nothing more than Protestants. But that wasn't PC, so what we turned into later was a thing called a Protestant. And to this day, we still are. And faith offered opportunity for everyone. A song that took the country was written in 1883 or 1884 by a dentist in New York City who happened to be black. And it took much of the nation, and it's a song about something better and what everyone happens to be looking for. Those golden slippers.
Are we ready?
I'm ready.
That's okay. Don't worry about it. Someone will do it. So for the people who are a bit more Baptist, I remember the first time we played in the large Presbyterian church in Missoula, built in 1915, and the choir sang with us. We stopped halfway through the first thing and said, "Look, people, I want you to understand a simple thing. I want you to sound like Baptists. We can't hear you. Speak up, you Presbyterians." So they finally did. So part of the character of faith nationwide is there's a difference from place to place, but much of it's just the same. So one of the songs we've done every year for years at Bannack is a simple tune about who we are and what it is. Hallelujah. I'm ready. Go ahead. You know, I give them more warning, but see, we have a limited problem here of education because we only go through the note G. You see, there's the key of A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, and past that, we're lost. Plus, we only count to 4 at the same speed twice in a row. So that being the case, I should give them more notice, I suppose, but it's always more fun if they don't know what the devil we're doing.
So we never know what Wally's going to spring on us. He writes a list down and puts it in his shirt. Singing soft and low. Hallelujah, I'm ready. Hallelujah, I'm ready to go. Hallelujah, I'm ready. Hallelujah, I can hear the voices singing soft and low. Hallelujah, I'm ready. Hallelujah, I'm ready to go. We're going to have a quiz for him after.
I like the Idaho.
So the other thing we resorted to is songs about where we're from that we grew up with. One of these songs almost is a song that you didn't hear. It was written by a gentleman in the Persimmon Valley of Idaho. He wrote it, he played it, cut it, and no one heard it for years. And Jerry Eastman and a few other gentlemen dug it out. And the other song every person who's here who's over 30 has waltzed to in their life is a simple song called the Tennessee Waltz. We wrote them about where we lived and what we did and what they were, and this is what they sound like. Idaho Waltz. Yeah, first.
This song goes back to the good old days in the Persimmon Valley, the other side of Salmon, about in '93 on the Salmon River. It's put together by a cowboy. He did make a recording of it, but nothing ever came out. So this is kind of to remember him. There's a winding trail that goes up through the pines of Idaho, on a trail that leads to heaven, and
So aside from where we are, the other thing we wrote a lot about is what we remember and who we were with. This is a song I hadn't heard until 3 or 4 years ago ever. Jerry does it well. It's a simple song. I remember the touch of your hand.
Found your letters today. I had tucked them with a pair of white gloves and a fan. I held them a while. It took me back, made me smile, 'cause I remember the touch of your hand. It was a midsummer's day. Village green was in light. Paper lanterns surrounded the band. They played waltzes till dawn, till all the couples were gone. I remember the touch of your hand. Now the face in the mirror is older. The children worry, they don't understand. I don't live for the past, but in dreams I still dance and remember the touch of your hand. Now the face in the mirror is older. They don't understand. Why don't live for the past, but in dreams I still dance and remember. Why don't live for the past, but in dreams I still dance and remember.
But we're guessing again.
So the other thing we all did music about was the way we traveled as children. I did not do a lot by boat, but if you grew up in Missoula or anywhere east, what you did is you traveled by train. It's an interesting thing to listen to Missoula County's commissioners talk about the return of the Hiawatha when they got $10 million poured into the fund and don't even understand the Hiawatha was not the Northern Pacific Railroad. That was the original name for the train that ran on the Chicago, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Pacific Railroad. And the train that ran on the Northern Pacific was, of course, the main liner for the mail and the North Coast Limited. But rail was an important thing. It came to this part of the world as well. They cut the ties at the sawmill in part at Big Arm, Montana, and north of here at Summers. And oddly enough, the community center that's down the hill at Round Butte, the lumber was milled here, floated in on the lake, cut in the sawmill, and hauled in the winter on sleds to build the Round Butte Community Center. So there was a mill, and it was tremendously successful for what Big Arm was. But the way most people hauled it was really simple, by train if you could. And the engine we were most proud of was the one called the Wabash Cannonball.
Are we ready? Rumble and the roar as you ride along the woodland through the hills by the shore. That mighty rush of engineer, that lonesome trouble's call. Driving through the jungle along the Wabash Cannonball. song The Train Ran Over, I guess. Yeah.
The train ran over and it has some interesting features. Sometimes it goes uphill, so it slows down. And other times it goes downhill, so it speeds up. And sometimes there's a cow on the tracks. And that's always a problem, unless you happen to be a Scotsboy. At which point in time you realize the best tasting beef in the world is my neighbor's. But it's in my freezer, and they don't know it. So we'll take a break after this, but this song will leave you with a break and one other note. On the break, one of my favorite firemen is sitting in the back with his hat on for Polson, but his offer to Big Arm is this: if you put a 20 in the jar for the Big Arm Association, he'll match it. So if you have a nice crisp 20 for the cause, that's a wonderful thing to do, and that helps out a lot. But take a close attention to how this goes, because you never can tell if the train's going to go fast or if the train's going to go slow.
I run off the track.
be back in 10 minutes.
They're so much better.
Yeah, they've got all the mics in one place though, and that's where the feedback's coming.
She's still moving.
He kept moving stuff around and tangled with John, I guess.
Oh, but were you there the other night when they were playing at the neighborhood, their neighbors?
Yeah, we were.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, you were sitting in. Hear anything.
Baby, you can hold on to me.
Came here with his brother James after surviving the Mormon Wars of 1857 in Salt Lake City. And what he said in the 1880s, and he married a schoolmarm, by the way, was this: you have no idea where you're going unless you have a good understanding about where you've been. And that is the reason why we tend to play history. It's a simple rule, it's a simple thing. And I personally think Daniel Boone's idea was good too. He told the Congress one time after he was elected, I was never lost. I was just befuddled one time for 4 days. So we spend a lot of time befuddled. However, in terms of what we celebrate, things like a Jubilee, and the things we do that are a lot of fun, that's what the next segment is. So enjoy. Sometimes it was difficult to find a young lady in the West, but if you needed to do that, it was a very simple thing. Just find Buffalo gals. resumed business as we were a little bit more suspect. So remember, it was about 1916, 17, 18 when the women's suffrage movement won. And women got the right to vote, but the consequence of that was another constitutional issue called prohibition. So we had to do something to make a living, and lo and behold, if you looked at the backside of Wild Horse Island until 15 years ago, you would find there was a very large 4-story hotel with 3 very fine hardwood dance floors and 4 pianos that worked in the 1970s, and I played all 4 of them as a child. The building was evacuated long before that, but during the Prohibition era, what it did is it made exactly the thing that our cousin Norton did. And that was a fine beverage called Mountain Dew.
Down the road way from me, there's this old Holland tree way down in Congdon. Well, you go round the bend, then you come back again with a jump ball and good old mountain. Well, they call that good old mountain, you old road, and that is it out. But I was just my mug, and you fill up my jug with that good old Mountain Dew. Well, my Uncle Morty is sawed off his short and he measured the 4'2". But he feels like a giant when you give him a pint of good old Mountain Dew. Well, they call it that good old Mountain Dew, Lord, and that bad means it on me. Well, I'll shove my mug and you fill up my jug with that good old Mountain Dew. Well, my Aunt Jim, she bought a perfume and it had such a sweet perfume. When it was to her surprise, she had it analyzed. It was nothing but some good old Mountain Dew. Oh, they call it that good old Mountain Dew, Lord, and that bad means it on you. Well, I'll shove my mug and fill up my jug with that good old Mountain Dew. Well, I'll shove my mug and fill up my jug with that good old Mountain
So a request for some history from the last time we did this was made, so I'll say it. The train was something we talked about earlier. What a lot of people did not understand till David Stipe, what I told you was the reason the train was so significant that it had stopped its diction was not just passengers. It was a function quite simply of things called the Hog Heaven Land and Cattle Company. The next time you watch television and see the movie Lonesome Dove, do this. Take a hard look at the wagon headed from Texas to Montana, and under it you will see a funny thing that most of you don't understand. 2 pigs. And they were for a reason. The only thing that will not burn on a wagon wheel for lubricant is hog fat and hog back with the fat on it. And on top of that, besides you needed the lubricant, you also wanted the bacon and you wanted the ham because of what it did, and also lard you cooked it. And as well, there were 2 other things here. Hog Heaven got its name because Nevada country, etc., is so full of rattlesnakes you can't believe it. And if you were going to homestead on this flat, this direction, on that flat, or anywhere on the north side of the bay, etc., the snakes were a problem. And what eats all the snakes and loves rattlesnakes especially are hogs. And if you raise a little bit of grain and haul it in bulk, it's very expensive. But if you let your pigs free range, they eat the snakes and more than that. Give them a little grain to quiet them down, and every October you can drove all your hogs and swim the river at Dixon and ship them to the packing plant. And every year, what we had on this corner of the world was the annual pig drive. And we also raised one other thing, and if you have the time ever, stop on the third floor of the courthouse and look at the pictures of the boys behind Elmo, Hot Springs, Narada, Irvin Flats, and what you'll find is during the Depression, 1930, 31, 32, 35, 38, every family raised the thing that solved the problem of grasshoppers and gave them income. Those were turkeys. And they were all shipped to Billings in time for Thanksgiving and Christmas each year. And bumming around is the way you traveled in those days, because the persons who traveled then, when you heard the Wabash Cannonball, a lot of people don't know, traveling through the jungle, that's where the hobos lived. And that is how we traveled at the time, because nobody had the money for a trip, nobody had the money for fuel, a lot of people didn't have cars, and there was nothing else. So the very train that hauled the hogs is the train that a lot of people literally rode as a hobo on the train, because we had no other way west and no other way east. And Oklahoma Hello meant a whole lot different thing, not the Grapes of Wrath version, etc., of what's on the side of the car, it's what was on in the boxcar, because the only place there was work and employment and a climate was the West Coast. Bumming around.
Got my old slouch hat, got my roll on my shoulder. I'm as free as a breeze, do as I please, just bumming around. Got a million friends, don't feel any older. I got nothing to lose, not even the blues, just bumming around. Whenever trouble starts to bother me, I drop my coat, I'll slouch out and I hit the trail again. You see
Thank you, thank you.
He did that just like I taught him.
You know, you think a couple of roommates for more than 60 years would learn to get along. St. Anne's would be fine. So Donald is here, and we didn't work on any Celtic stuff for him, but some of the reels and some of the other tunes came with us from the old country and the new country. Whether you're Scots or Irish or French or whatever, the reels and the songs that were equivalent came as well with the trappers. The persons for Quebec, the Acadians, the other persons brought them with them. St. Anne's reel is a simple tune. Accents in the crowd this evening from south of the Mason-Dixon line. One of them's from Texas. And I want you to know I saw a guy from Texas yesterday who said, you know, our ranch is so big in Texas that if you get in your truck at 8 in the morning and drive all day, you're still on it at 8 o'clock that night. And I said, yeah, you're right. I've got 2 pickups like that. He did not think I was very funny at all. What hurt more is it was true. Anyway, so the reality is, if we asked them or us when we came years ago and who we are, and we said, where are you from? Until 911, we didn't have addresses. My mailing address at Dell, Montana for UPS was not a post office box. It was not a street. It was 6 1/2 miles south of Dell. And And UPS brought us a package. So did Federal Express. Dean Shiner and Deb Shiner's family still has that issue. That's how they live. I suspect Jerry does as well. Richard goes to town to the mailbox just because of principle, but other than that, he wouldn't. But that's how we do. So if they ask us then and now where we're from, we say the simple thing in a song. We're from down yonder. About 15 minutes, we'll do 3 things instead of 1. One thing is this: Ron volunteered the time and did our sound, and it's his system. And all of us owe him a huge thank you. And the whole band does too. And we can actually hear it, it's delightful.
You and I play at the shoe.
Yes, and he and I also have been known to show up at the shoe 2 times a month to play music. And I don't play this bass there, I play that other funky looking one, but that's all right. That's the deal. So the other part is something we've done a lot lately is what our mama told us not to do. And our mama told us not to do a lot, and that's why all of us were problem children in one sense, because we all played music, I'm sorry. That's also why the hardest 4 years of my life was the 5th grade. But Richard knows better than anybody what our mama doesn't allow us to do, and everybody gets a lick on this one to do something right. So I think since we've done it so many times, instead of leaving you with a different song, we'll do one song after this one. But this one is one that's a treat, because it's something that our mama does not allow.
Key and G.
We got one guy on board.
Yeah, we switch gears so quick up here, it takes us a minute to catch up. I can, you want me to?
When you get to
When I get done with this. I get my orders here, all the way around. So this is our way to introduce the band members. I'm still Richard Baharny. I'm the guy with this thing, the banjo. So I'll try to get everybody as we go.
Paddle faster. I hear banjos.
the guitar and Joni on the guitar, and now I'm on the guitar.
There we go.
And I wouldn't be able to fit all that stuff in without getting my tongue tied. Mama don't allow no guitar picking around here. Mama don't allow no guitar picking around here. We don't care what Mama don't allow, gonna play our guitar anyhow. Mama don't allow no guitar picking around here. Mr. Wally Congdon on the, thank you. Mr. Wally Congdon on the doghouse bass over here. Mama don't allow no big bass playing around here. Mama don't allow no big bass playing around here. We don't care if Mama don't allow, gonna play that bass fiddle anyhow. Mama don't allow no big bass fiddle around here.
What about Denise? What about Denise?
Oh, Denise, wait a minute. Hey, here we go. Denise, come on over here. Come on over here. You're hiding behind the speaker. Come on over here. Mama don't allow no mandolin playing around here.
Years ago, but it's the last thing you'd ever expect from a string band. And once you figure out 2 or 3 minutes into it what it is, you're happy to sing along, and we don't mind that at all. There's a slow version, then there's a relatively fast version, and it goes out a little more gently. But this is not about who we are, where we've been, it's what we've done, it's what we're looking for in terms of where we're going. Mr. Eastman. you, Bannack Association.
Has anybody seen Toto?
Where's Toto?
Thank you.
Hey.
No, but I've seen the lion.